Hi guys. Today I want to introduce you to this new add-on for Blender called PBR Painter. The author of this interesting add-on is called Will Gardner. This useful add-on is recommended for people who want to start painting their own models like on Substance Painter, but of course it doesn't cost the Adobe program. With a minimum cost of $20, the plugin gives us all the suitable tools to be able to paint and create textures in a professional way or meshes directly from Blender, without the need to change software. The plugin can be purchased in Blender Market, where a well-made page and curated documentation help us to understand the add-on well. Honestly, this add-on surprised me, with I believe this result could be achieved, as if I had Substance Painter inside Blender. I recommend it to everyone because with PBR Painter combined with the power of Blender we will have a real competitor at Substance. Will Gardner is continuously working on his add-on and will be releasing version 2.2 within a few weeks. For this tutorial I will use Beta 8, but already the plugin has several improvements, some suggested by me too, that have already made this exceptional plugin a leap forward. When you have installed the add-on it will show you the preferences page where you can check all the keywords that the add-on will use to automatically load the textures. And if necessary we can add others according to our needs. The add-on is not shown on the tool panel immediately but will be shown when you switch to texture paint mode. There are a couple of limitations but they do not depend on the plugin but on Blender directly. Will work to find solutions. The first is the maximum limit of textures that can be loaded on each material. In reality the solution has been found here by creating a bake of the textures when you reach the limit. The bake is done thanks to a convenient button. This will allow us to continue to work and circumvent the limitation. The second limitation is the triplane projection of the textures on the mesh which in Blender is called box, but it doesn't work correctly, but Will assured me that he will find a solution to improve this aspect. When you start working with the add-on, you will have the purple mesh. This indicates that we have not yet created our material. Clicking on the new button will activate the materials panel. When we add a material, PBR Painter will give us the possibility to choose an empty material or use an already existing material and also create a backup. In this case I will make a new one. The mesh must have a good UV map and not have overlap of faces, this to have a good bake of the textures. We quickly describe the panel before starting to texturize the wagon in the second part of the tutorial. From this button we can choose the rendering engine. This command is handy especially when we have to calculate the masks, and in some cases it will be necessary to use cycles. By clicking on New, the layers will be added, which will contain the varied textures that we can overlay to create our material. We can choose the resolution and the type of layer to use. With multi-channel type layers we can work at the same time on all channels, albedo, normal, roughness, occlusion, etc. With the single channel layers instead we will be able to work on each single channel independently. For example we can use a normal map channel directly only on it without intervening on others. For a workflow similar to Substance Painter I recommend using the multi-channel. We can also import an already existing material in Blender. The resolution indicates the detail for the paint layer. The higher the resolution, the finer the edges of the brush stroke will be. If we want to import external textures, we can use a 1 pixel by 1 pixel layer, so we can also save the memory of our video card. We can also use a depth of 32 bits, to improve the rendering of the normal map. We press on OK and the first layer will be ready to be used, as if we were in Substance Painter. With the first of the 3 buttons below we can paint the layer, with the second we can load all the external textures, with the third button we can link the masks we are going to create to each channel. The primary PBR channels are all the most used ones, but PBR Painter also gives the possibility to select even the secondary ones, to create customized effects. We can also load an ID mask. With Add New Mask we can create layers to be able to mix textures, for example to create the rust effect. With the last button we can recover the last 10 deleted layers, a kind of undo. The button, Merge Visible Layers, is used to merge all visible layers, and helps us to overcome the limit of Blender. By pressing this button all the layers we are using will be baked in a single textures and so we can continue working on the layers. PBR Painter also gives us the possibility to create a backup to be able to go back and modify the previous work. Now let's load a material to see how to import multiple textures, then we'll start texturing the wagon. By clicking on the central button PBR Painter will open the panel to load the textures. If our textures have the keywords, PBR Painter will automatically place them in the correct slots. Each channel has other modes, for example painted, if we want to manually paint on the model. Constant, which adds a uniform and full color to the mesh, very useful if we want to add solid colors that we can change at any time. Textures, to load external textures. Procedural, which adds procedural texture to the layer. Link to Mask, which unites the channel to the masked channel. Dome, you will notice, all the textures have been inserted in the appropriate slots. If they have not been inserted, do not panic, we can load them manually, in all the necessary channels. With the color ramp that we find in the channels, we can increase and decrease the intensities for each effect. To apply the texture to our model, click on the fill icon, and the textures will be added. From the texture mapping button we can change the projection of textures. From UV we can change to box, and with Seam Blend we can eliminate the seams. To find out how all the other parameters of PBR Painter work, I suggest you follow the manual that you find on the author's page, because it is very well written and clear. It will not be difficult to learn all the functions. In this tutorial I will try to use my workflow, which I use in Substance Painter, and I will use it on PBR Painter. We begin to texturize the wagon. I want to specify that I will not use the ID mask, but will use separate meshes, so I can concentrate on every single element, and at the same time I also avoid the limitation of Blender for multi-textures, because I find it more comfortable and practical. This procedure in Substance Painter it is not possible to do it. For this reason the ID masks are also used. In the end I will merge all the textures into one, and add the final effects. For this tutorial I will be using materials from Megascans, thanks to Quixelbidge. The first thing I do is add materials to each mesh to get an overall idea of the project. Later I will add effects and normal maps to simulate bolts. I'm not going to do a complex texture paint, but a simple workflow. In later videos I will do something more complex. The model has a UV map made previously, all on a single sheet. For better visualization, let's switch into shade mode, and add an HDRI. I use the free, Easy HDRI plugin. From the render settings, let's add some ambient occlusion to enhance the shadows. You will also need to use cycles to create masks, so I'll set GPU rendering ahead of time. Let's go into Blender's texture paint mode, and select PBR Painter add-on. I advise you to name all your meshes correctly, so it will be easier to identify the elements we want to use. Blender also gives us the possibility to jump from one mesh to another in a simple way, without leaving the texture paint mode. In this way our workflow will be faster. Let's start to texturize the tank of the wagon. But first of all, I am adjusting the Blender interface to make it more like Substance Painter's. Let's create the tank material, and activate the first layer, and name it Base. In this case we will use external textures, so we can give a resolution of 1 pixel by 1 pixel. This low resolution will not affect the textures. If instead we want to paint manually, we will have to choose a higher resolution. We press OK, and our basic level will be ready. We press the command to load the textures. From Quixel Bridge, we choose the material we want to use and open the destination folder of the material. Quixel gives us the possibility to download the material directly in Blender, but I haven't done a test yet to see if PBR Painter loads it for me. In an upcoming video I will test and let you know. We choose the rust green metal sheet material. With the right mouse button I open the destination folder. I drag and drop the textures, and select the textures I need. Albedo, ambient occlusion, normal and roughness. PBR Painter will create all the necessary channels. To view the material on the tank, we need to click on the fill icon. The UV map is incorrect, so let's go to the texture mapping panel to switch to box mode. The only flaw is the incorrect Blender projection, but the author of the plugin already has a solution in mind. If the solution works, the value of PBR Painter will increase dramatically. Let's change the scale of the texture. We blend the edges to improve the seams. Let's move on to the bars. From the collection, I easily choose the mesh by clicking on the button to the left of the name. This way I don't need to leave paint mode. Same procedure as before. Let's set a new material and add the base layer. The resolution of the layer will always be 1 pixel by 1 pixel. Let's open Quixel Bridge and choose a new material. In this case, I choose Rusty Metal. As I did earlier, I open the material destination folder. I open the Blender loader, and drag and drop the file. Click on Fill and the material will be applied. We apply the same material to the hooks of the bars. Just assign the same material as the bars to this mesh. As you can see, the material will adapt to the mesh and therefore multiple meshes can share the same material. The only problem is always the triplane projection, so I decide to change from box projection to UV map projection. I set the projection size to 0.5. Same procedure for the rest of the meshes. I increase the speed of the video to speed up the procedure. After adding the material to each element, I begin to give a detail. I start from the tank, where I want to insert some bolts. To do this I add a second layer. In this case I will use a resolution of 2048 by 2048 pixels, because I want more detail. I enable mirror on X-axis. And with a line brush and with a spacing of 500% and I create my bolts. At the moment the bolts are not visible, because I have to assign a color to the base color channel, and I also have to increase the normal map level. The color will be gray, and the blending mode will be set to multiply. With this system we will be able to increase the effect of the bolt layout by increasing or decreasing the intensity of the gray color. I also manually insert the bolts that run around the tank. But thanks to the mirror on the X-axis I only need to do half. Remember to set the brush values. Thanks to the separation of objects, I can isolate every single element in order to work it better. Now is the time to apply stencils. With the help of a 2D program I create a 2K mask, in black and white. With the mask I can draw any color on the tank. In my case a dark red. From PBR Painter, we add a new 2K layer, set the constant mode and assign the color. With constant mode, it will be easier to change the color of the stencil if necessary. From the brush panel I load the 2D textures, and set the mapping in stencil mode. With the Ctrl, Shift and Alt keys I can move, scale, and rotate the stencil. I place the stencil where I'm interested and paint the writing. Don't forget to deactivate the mirror, otherwise the writings will be painted upside down. Now I add a new layer, to add some dirt to the tank. I assign a gray color, in constant mode, and apply a blending mode in multiply. From the Masks panel, I add a mask level. I select a preset mask, in this case grunge. With the convenient preview button I can preview how the mask will be painted. With the commands of the mask I can change the appearance. I will need this mask to create light and dark colors on the material, and to give dirt effects. We can add as many masks as we want to create different types of effects. By pressing the bake key, Blender will bake the masks, making the newly created mask available for the Eevee engine. Same procedure for the wagon plan. I add more layers for dirt and use masks to filter the layers. Now I will add some oil drippings on the tank. From Megascan download a stencil that is right for me. I add a new layer. Constant color. In this case I also increase the normal map and the roughness a little to give a liquid effect. I load the stencil, and as I did for the writing, I paint the drippings on the tank. Thanks to the constant layer mode, I can change the color and style of the drippings at any time. Now I duplicate the entire collection, to have a backup of the work, and hide it. I merge all the meshes of the project so as to make a single mesh. In this way all the materials will be applied to a single mesh. This procedure, assures us, will be simplified with an automatic operation, in the next versions. After we have merged the model we can bake all the materials, and save them in an external folder, on our hard disk. From the Save panel, we enable the Bake All PBR Materials on Mesh function, which will merge all the materials into one and only mesh. Taking care of also mixing the derived channels, such as normal lapse, ambient occlusion, roughness and all those we had activated at the beginning of our project. Now from the mesh we can delete all the previous materials. From PBR Painter we add a new material, and in this we load all the textures we have just created. This procedure will also be automated in future versions. At this point we can still work on our material, add dirt, effects and secondary details. With the same procedures done previously. From Quixel Bridge I download 2 graffiti stencils, which I will use to draw graffiti on the wagon. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I recommend you buy this great add-on, because I believe it is an alternative to Substance within Blender. If you like this video, please leave a like for more videos like this one. Thanks for watching.